Admiral Kim Soo-jin stood on the bridge of the Times New Dawn *, staring at the empty space where the Centauri system should have been buzzing with traffic. Instead, a wall of shimmering energy stretched across the stars like a soap bubble made of light. The veil had been there for 3 months now, cutting off every star system in the galaxy. "Still no signals, Admiral," reported Dr. Park Min-ho from his communication station. His fingers moved across the controls, searching frequencies that had once carried voices from 1,000 worlds. Now they heard only silence. Kim nodded slowly. She had expected this answer, but hope died hard. "What about the other systems?" "All the same," Park said. His voice was tired. "The veil surrounds every star system we can detect. We can see the barriers, but nothing gets through. No radio, no quantum signals. Nothing." Commander Lee Da-yoon stepped up beside the Admiral. "The fleet is ready for your orders. 43 ships, all that made it to Luna Station before the barriers went up." Kim looked at the tactical display. 43 ships to face a mystery that had swallowed the entire galaxy. It seemed impossible, but humanity had faced impossible odds before. "That's what worries me most," Lee said. "The Zephyrians, the Coralli, even the Hegemony, they all went silent at exactly the same time. No distress calls, no emergency broadcasts. One moment they were there. Silence." Kim finished. Dr. Park looked up from his station. "Admiral, I've been studying the veil energy patterns. This isn't natural. Someone or something is controlling these barriers." "Show me," Kim said. Park brought up his readings on the main screen. Wave patterns danced across the display in complex rhythms. "See these fluctuations? They're too regular to be random. The veil is responding to something. Almost like it's listening," Kim said. The thought sent a chill down her spine. "Exactly. But listening to what?" Before anyone could answer, the ship's medical officer called from across the bridge. "Admiral, we have a situation in crew quarters. Several people are reporting strange dreams." Kim frowned. "What kind of dreams?" Dr. Yu Sung-hwan pulled up his medical reports. They all described the same thing. Empty cities on alien worlds. Streets with no people. Buildings dark and silent. The dreams feel real, like they're seeing actual places. "How many crew members?" Lee asked. 12 so far, but the number is growing. They wake up feeling sad, like they've lost something important." Kim studied the patterns on Park's screen again. The waves seemed to pulse in rhythm, like a heartbeat. "Dr. Park, what if the veil isn't just blocking our signals? What if it's sending something back?" Park's eyes widened. "You think it's affecting our dreams?" "I think we need to find out what happened to everyone else," Kim said. She turned to the helm officer. "Lieutenant Kim Hana, set course for the nearest veil barrier. We're going to test it." "Admiral," Lee said quietly, "what if we can't get back out?" Kim had thought about this many times over the past 3 months. Each night, she lay awake wondering if humanity's scattered colonies were trapped forever. Each system, alone, in the dark. The dreams had started for her too. Visions of Earth's cities empty. The great space stations drifting silent and cold. "Then we'll find another way," she said. "We can't leave everyone trapped like this." The ship moved toward the shimmering wall of energy. As they got closer, the barrier filled their view. Beautiful and terrible, like aurora light stretched across space. Park's instruments went wild as they approached. "I'm detecting massive energy readings," he reported. "Whatever this thing is, it's incredibly powerful." Engineer Choi Hee-jin called from the engine room. "Admiral, I'm seeing strange effects on our systems. The ship's computer is running diagnostics on its own, like something is scanning us." Kim felt the weight of command heavy on her shoulders. 43 ships and their crews were depending on her decisions. Billions of humans trapped in isolated systems were depending on her. But as she looked at the veil barrier, she realized something else was depending on her too. The dreams weren't just random images. They were showing her what the galaxy had become. Empty, silent, alone. Whatever had created the veil had done it to everyone, not just humans. The proud Zephyrian telepaths, the wise Coralie philosophers, the mighty hegemony fleets, all reduced to silence. "Admiral," Park said suddenly, "I'm picking up something. Very faint, but it's there." "What is it?" "It sounds like singing." "No, that's not right. It's more like a lullaby." The bridge fell quiet, except for the hum of ship systems. Then, through the speakers, came a sound unlike anything Kim had ever heard. It was beautiful and sad at the same time, like a mother's voice soothing a frightened child. "That's coming from the veil?" Lee asked. "From beyond it," Park confirmed. "From inside the Centauri system." Kim made her decision. "All ships. This is Admiral Kim. We're going to try breaking through that barrier. Not to fight whatever's on the other side, but to find answers. Prepare the fleet for penetration attempt." As the Times New Dawn Times led the human fleet toward the wall of light, Kim thought about the lullaby coming from the stars. Whatever had silenced the galaxy didn't sound evil. It sounded tired and scared and very, very lonely. Perhaps that was something humanity could understand. Perhaps that was why they were the ones who had to break through the silence and find out what had happened to all the voices in the dark. The veil waited ahead, beautiful and mysterious, holding its secrets close. But Kim Soo-jin had not come this far to turn back now. The galaxy was silent, but humanity would find a way to make it sing again. Lieutenant Yoon Jae-sung checked his scout ship systems one more time. The Times' Swift Arrow Times was small and fast, perfect for the dangerous mission ahead. Engineer Choi Hae-jin had spent 2 weeks modifying its hull with resonance dampeners, hoping they would help the ship pass through the veil barrier. "Remember, Lieutenant," Admiral Kim's voice came through the comm. "You go in, take readings, and come back. No heroics." "Understood, Admiral," Yoon replied. He was young for such an important mission, but he was also the best pilot in the fleet. His hands were steady on the controls as the Times Swift Arrow Times approached the shimmering wall. Behind him, the human fleet waited. 43 ships holding their breath as one small scout tried to break through 3 months of galactic silence. The veil grew larger as Yoon flew closer. Up close, it looked like flowing water, made of light. Beautiful patterns moved across its surface, hypnotic and strange. He felt drawn to touch it, to understand what it was. "Entering the barrier now," he reported. The moment his ship touched the veil, everything changed. The universe seemed to bend around him. Colors that had no names flashed past his windows. His instruments showed impossible readings, distances that made no sense, time flowing backward and forward at once. Then, suddenly, he was through. The Proxima Centauri system spread out before him, looking exactly as it should. The red star burned quietly in the distance. The small, rocky planet orbited where it belonged. Everything seemed normal. But something was wrong. "Admiral, I'm through the barrier," Yoon radioed. "The system looks normal. But where is everyone?" He flew toward Proxima Station, the large space habitat that housed 50,000 colonists. It should have been busy with traffic, bright with lights, alive with activity. Instead, it drifted dark and silent. "I see the colony ship Times New Horizon asterisk," Yoon reported. "She's intact, but not responding to hails." As he got closer, Yoon could see through the ship's windows. People floated in the corridors, but they weren't moving. They looked like they were sleeping, drifting peacefully in the zero gravity. "Admiral, the colonists appear to be alive but unconscious." Dr. Park's voice crackled through the comm. "Lieutenant, can you dock with the ship? We need to know what happened to them." Yoon maneuvered his scout craft to the Times New Horizons Times docking port. The ship's systems responded automatically, But no human voice welcomed him aboard. He put on his environmental suit and cycled through the airlock. The corridor beyond was filled with floating people. Men, women, children, all drifting peacefully with their eyes closed. Their faces were calm, almost happy, but they didn't respond when Yoon called out or touched them. He made his way to the bridge and found the ship's captain, a woman named Sarah Chen, floating beside her command chair. Her vital signs were strong, but she was completely unresponsive. "They're all alive but deeply unconscious," Yoon reported. "It's like they're in some kind of coma." Suddenly, Captain Chen's eyes opened, but she didn't look at Yoon. Instead, she stared straight ahead and spoke in a voice that wasn't quite her own. "Why do you disturb the peace?" the voice asked through Chen's lips. "We have brought harmony to the chaos. We have silenced the violent voices." Yoon stepped back, startled. "Who are you? What have you done to these people?" "We are the Veil," Chen's voice continued, though her eyes remained unfocused. "We protect the galaxy from itself. Communication leads to conflict. Conflict leads to war. War leads to extinction. But people need to talk to each other," Yoon said. "How can we live without communication?" "You will live in peace," the voice replied. "As they do now. No more arguments, no more fights, no more pain. Only quiet harmony." Through the ship's speakers, Yoon heard that same lullaby Admiral Kim had detected. Beautiful, sad, and somehow lonely. It seemed to come from everywhere at once, filling the ship with its haunting melody. "The young races do not understand," the voice through Chen said. "You see silence as emptiness. We see silence as safety. Your species spread across the stars, talking, planning, scheming. Soon you would make the same mistakes as those who came before." "What mistakes?" Yoon asked. But Chen's eyes had closed again, and she returned to her peaceful, floating. The voice was gone, leaving only the lullaby and the sound of Yoon's own heartbeat. He quickly gathered data recordings and biological samples, then hurried back to his ship. As the Times Swift Arrow Times undocked from the Times New Horizon asterisk, Yoon felt something trying to grab his mind. A gentle but insistent pressure, like invisible hands trying to pull him into the same peaceful sleep as the colonists. "Admiral," he called into his comm. "Something's trying to affect my mind. I need to get out of here, now." Yoon fired his engines and raced back toward the barrier. The pressure in his head grew stronger, and he found himself wanting to stop, to turn around, to join the peaceful sleepers. The lullaby grew louder, more beautiful, more compelling. Just as he thought he might give in to the wonderful quiet, his ship broke through the veil barrier. The pressure vanished instantly, and the lullaby faded to silence. The human fleet surrounded him as he returned, eager for news. Admiral Kim's face appeared on his screen. Worried, but hopeful. "Report, Lieutenant," she said. "The veil isn't just a barrier, Admiral," Yoon said, still shaking from his experience. "It's alive. It thinks it's protecting the galaxy by keeping everyone asleep. It sees communication as dangerous." Dr. Park leaned into view. "Did it say why?" "It mentioned those who came before. I think something happened in the past, a war maybe, that made it fear communication between species." Admiral Kim was quiet for a long moment. Around them, the veil barrier shimmered with its flowing light patterns, beautiful and terrible in its power. "So we're not dealing with an enemy," she finally said. "We're dealing with a guardian that's lost its way." "What do we do, Admiral?" Commander Lee asked. Kim looked at the barrier that held billions of beings in forced peace. Somewhere beyond that wall of light, entire civilizations dreamed quiet dreams, while their protector sang lullabies to empty stars. "We find a way to show it that communication doesn't have to mean conflict," she said. "We prove that talking to each other makes us stronger, not weaker." But as she spoke, Kim wondered how they could convince something that had the power to silence an entire galaxy. How do you argue with a force that believes silence is safety? The answer would have to wait. For now, they had learned the first terrible truth. The galaxy wasn't dead. It was sleeping, trapped in dreams of peace by something that cared too much to let it wake up. Captain Jung So-young watched her science ship times, Harmony times, drift toward another veil barrier. This one surrounded the Kepler system, home to the telepathic Zephyrians. If any species could fight back against mental control, it would be them. Anything different about this barrier? Admiral Kim asked through the comlink. Dr. Nam Ki-woo studied his readings carefully. As the fleet's xenobiologist, he understood alien minds better than most humans. The energy patterns are more active here, he said. Almost like there's a struggle happening inside. 3 weeks had passed since Lieutenant Yoon's discovery in the Proxima system. The human fleet had visited 6 other barriers, finding the same peaceful sleepers everywhere. But the Zephyrian barrier showed signs of resistance. I'm detecting faint telepathic signals, Dr. Park reported from his station. Very weak. But they're there. The Zephyrians might still be fighting. Captain Jung felt a spark of hope. The Zephyrians were an ancient race with powerful mental abilities. If anyone could resist the Veil's influence, it would be them. Admiral, she said, request permission to attempt contact with the Zephyrian resistance. Granted, Kim replied. But be careful. We don't know what the Veil will do if it detects active resistance. Dr. Nam began adjusting the communication array to telepathic frequencies. The Zephyrians communicated through direct mind-to-mind contact, sharing thoughts and emotions across vast distances. It was beautiful but dangerous. Their entire species felt each other's pain. Contact established, Nam announced. It's fragmentary, but someone inside is trying to reach us. The bridge fell silent as broken thoughts came through the speakers. The voice was strained, desperate, fighting against something that tried to silence it. Human, ships, can you hear us? The words came in pieces, interrupted by long gaps. The silence. It came 3 months ago, promising peace. We hear you, Captain Jung replied. This is the human vessel. Times, Harmony asterisk. Can you tell us what happened? Our home, world, most of our people. Sleep now. Peaceful dreams. But some of us resist. We remember the warnings from before. Dr. Park leaned forward. What warnings? The telepathic voice grew stronger for a moment, as if the speaker was making a final effort. The builders of the silence. They died in the last Great War. 5 million years ago. Their creation still guards, still protects, but wrongly. Well, and P. Well, and P. Well. Static filled the channel, then returned. The silence. Fears. What destroyed. Its makers. It sees all communication as seeds of that destruction. It does not understand the difference between talking and fighting. How do we stop it? Jung asked urgently. Not stop, heal. The silence is wounded, traumatized. It acts from ancient pain. Show it that words can build, not just destroy. Show it cooperation, not competition. The signal began to fade. We cannot hold on much longer. The peaceful sleep calls to us. But remember, humans have something. We do not. You adapt. You change. You see new ways. Where we see only old patterns. What makes us different? Young called out, but the signal was almost gone. Your emotions flow like water. Ours are deep like stone. The silence understands our rigid thoughts, but your flexible minds. The telepathic voice vanished, leaving only the gentle lullaby that seemed to follow them everywhere. But now, Jung understood something new about that song. It wasn't meant to control. It was meant to comfort. The veil was trying to soothe the galaxy, like a parent calming a frightened child. Dr. Nam looked up from his instruments, excitement in his eyes. Captain, I think I understand what the Zephyrian meant. Most alien species have very structured thought patterns. Logical, predictable, organized. But humans, we're messy, Jung finished. Our emotions change quickly. We think in ways that don't follow simple rules. Exactly. The veil can predict and control organized minds. But human consciousness is too chaotic for it to fully understand. Admiral Kim's voice came through the comm. Captain Jung, return to the fleet. We need to discuss this new information. As the Times Harmony Times moved away from the barrier, Captain Jung thought about what they had learned. The veil wasn't evil. It was a traumatized guardian trying to prevent another galactic war. Its creators had died in some ancient conflict, leaving behind a protector that could only see danger in communication. But humans were different. Their emotions and adaptability made them unpredictable. That chaos might be the key to reaching something that had spent 5 million years afraid of its own shadow. When the Times Harmony Times rejoined the fleet, Admiral Kim called a meeting of all ship captains. The holographic conference room filled with worried faces as Jung shared the Zephyrian's message. So we're dealing with a guardian that's been traumatized for 5 million years, Commander Lee summarized. It's trying to protect the galaxy from something that destroyed its creators. But it's protecting us to death. Captain Park Sung-min from the Heavy Cruiser Times Determination Times added, those people in the barriers aren't living. They're just existing. Dr. Park Min-ho brought up star charts on the main display. I've been analyzing the patterns. The veil appeared simultaneously across the entire galaxy. That level of coordination suggests incredible power and intelligence. The question is, Admiral Kim said, how do we convince something that powerful that communication can be safe? Engineer Choi Hae-jin had been quiet during the meeting, but now she spoke up. What if we don't try to convince it with words? The Zephyrians said we're different because our emotions flow like water. What if we show it those emotions directly? How? Jung asked. Music, Choi said simply. Art, poetry, expressions of love and friendship, things that can only exist through communication, but have nothing to do with conflict. Dr. Nam nodded excitedly. The veil has been listening to us. It hears our radio signals, our conversations, but it only pays attention to the logical content. What if we flood it with emotional content instead? Admiral Kim stood up, her decision made. All ships, prepare for Operation Harmony. We're going to show the veil what human communication really looks like. As the meeting ended, Captain Jung looked out at the nearest barrier. Beyond that wall of light, billions of beings dreamed peaceful dreams, while their guardians sang lullabies to the stars. But soon, if their plan worked, those barriers might transform from walls into bridges. The galaxy had been silent for 3 months. It was time to teach it how to sing again, not with words of war, but with songs of connection, hope, and love. Communications. Officer Han Tae-min worked through the night, his fingers dancing across holographic displays. Around him, the Times New Dawn's Times Communication Center hummed with activity as crew members from every ship in the fleet contributed to what they now called the Harmony Protocol. How's it coming, Han? Dr. Lim Yun-seo asked as she entered the room. The child psychologist had been studying the veil's behavior patterns, trying to understand the mind of something that had spent 5 million years afraid. Almost ready, Han replied. We've collected music from 30 different human cultures. poetry in 15 languages, mathematical expressions of beauty, and recordings of children laughing. If this doesn't show the veil that communication creates joy, nothing will. Dr. Lim nodded as she reviewed the psychological profile she'd built. The veil acts like a traumatized child, she said. It experienced something terrible and now sees danger everywhere. But children can be healed if you show them enough love and patience. Across the fleet, similar preparations were happening on every ship. Admiral Kim had ordered all vessels to take positions around different veil barriers throughout the sector. In 12 hours, they would begin broadcasting simultaneously, flooding the galaxy with messages of peace and cooperation. On the bridge, Commander Lee Da-yoon studied tactical displays that showed something remarkable. For the first time in months, the veil barriers were showing signs of change. The energy patterns were becoming more active, more confused. "Admiral," Lee reported, "the barriers are reacting to our preparations. It's like the veil knows something is different." Admiral Kim joined her at the display. The flowing patterns of light that marked each barrier had become more chaotic, less predictable. "It's listening," Kim said. "Whatever we're planning, it's already trying to understand." Dr. Park Min-ho looked up from his station. "I'm detecting increased activity in the telepathic frequencies too. The Zephyrians inside their barrier are doing something." "What kind of activity?" "They're singing. Telepathically. It's beautiful, but sad. Like they're trying to comfort something." Kim realized what was happening. The Zephyrians weren't just resisting the veil anymore. They were trying to heal it. Their telepathic abilities let them reach directly into the entity's mind, offering comfort instead of conflict. "All ships," Kim announced fleet-wide. "Begin Operation Harmony." Across the sector, 43 human vessels began broadcasting. Not the usual radio chatter of military communications, but something entirely different. Children's lullabies mixed with complex mathematical poems. Love songs flowed alongside recordings of families reuniting after long separations. Han Tae-min had designed the broadcasts to be impossible to ignore. They used every frequency, every communication method humanity had developed. But instead of demanding attention, they offered gifts. Small pieces of beauty that could only exist because people chose to share them with each other. The effect was immediate. The veil barriers began to pulse, in rhythm with the music, their light patterns becoming more organic, more alive. The constant lullaby that had filled the galaxy for months began to change, incorporating melodies from the human broadcasts. "Admiral," Dr. Park called out excitedly, "I'm getting responses from inside the barriers, not just the Zephyrians, other species too. The Coralli are transmitting mathematical art. The hegemony is broadcasting something that sounds like poetry." On Captain Jung's science vessel, Dr. Nam Ki-woo monitored the biological effects. "The sleeping populations are showing increased brain activity," he reported. "They're still unconscious, but their minds are becoming more active." But the most dramatic change was happening to the veil itself. The entity that had enforced galactic silence for 3 months was experiencing something it hadn't felt in 5 million years. Communication that didn't threaten, but connected. Through sensors across the fleet, they could feel the veil's confusion. It had built its entire existence around the belief that communication led to conflict. Now it was bombarded with evidence that talking could create beauty, connection, and joy. Commander Lee monitored her instruments as strange new readings appeared. "Admiral, the barriers are destabilizing, but not collapsing. Transforming. Into what? I don't know. The energy patterns are unlike anything we've seen." Suddenly, every screen on every ship displayed the same image, a vast presence, ancient beyond measure, made of light and thought and endless loneliness. The veil had revealed itself, not as a barrier. When it spoke, its voice carried the weight of eons. Not through the lips of sleeping humans this time, but directly into their minds. I do not understand, the Veil said. Your communications create harmony, not discord. Your words build bridges, not weapons. How is this possible? Admiral Kim stepped forward, knowing she was speaking for all humanity. Because we learned something different than those who came before. We learned that our differences make us stronger, not weaker. The Makers, the Veil whispered. They could not learn this. They spoke only to dominate, to control, to conquer. Their words became weapons that destroyed worlds. We're sorry for what happened to them, Kim said gently. But we're not them. We make mistakes too, but we try to learn from them. The presence seemed to shift, examining the broadcasts flowing from every human ship. You share your music freely. You offer your art without demanding payment. You speak of love between beings who are not even the same species. Yes, Kim said. That's what communication means to us. I have been wrong. The Veil's voice carried something that might have been wonder. For 5 million years, I have prevented what I feared would destroy the galaxy again. But, perhaps I have been destroying it in a different way. Through the ship's sensors, Kim could feel the entity's pain, eons of loneliness, of watching over a galaxy it dared not let live. You were trying to protect everyone, she said. That's not wrong. But protection, without connection, isn't really life. Show me, the Veil whispered. Show me how communication can heal instead of harm. And of where? Show me how communication can heal instead of harm. What happened next would be remembered across the galaxy for generations. Led by Admiral Kim, representatives from every human ship approached the nearest Veil barriers. But instead of trying to break through by force, they simply talked. They told stories of cooperation between human colonies. They shared memories of conflicts resolved through dialogue instead of violence. They spoke of the Galactic Council that humanity had helped create, where disputes were settled with words instead of weapons. And slowly, carefully, the Veil began to listen, not with fear, but with hope. The barriers didn't disappear, but they began to change. The walls of light that had separated worlds became networks of connection, carrying the voices of awakening civilizations as they stirred from their enforced sleep. For the first time in 5 million years, the galaxy's guardian was learning to trust again. Ambassador Kang Mi-young stepped through the transformed barrier as if walking through liquid starlight. Behind her came Admiral Kim, Commander Lee, and representatives from a dozen awakening species. The Veil had invited them into its core consciousness, the place where it had made its lonely decisions for 5 million years. The space around them defied description. It was like standing inside a living galaxy, with streams of light carrying the thoughts and dreams of billions of beings. But now those dreams were changing from enforced peace to willing cooperation. Welcome, the Veil said, its voice no longer carrying the weight of ancient fear. I have much to learn, and little time to waste. Elder Zephyrian Vel Nash floated beside the human delegation, his telepathic abilities glowing softly in the strange space. The healing has begun, he said, but the wounds run deep. 5 million years of isolation cannot be undone overnight. Around them, the consciousness of the galaxy's guardian swirled in patterns of memory and regret. Kim could see flashes of the ancient war that had traumatized it. Worlds burning. Species extinct. The very stars weeping for what communication had wrought when it became weaponized. I understand your fear, Ambassador Kang said gently. But look at what we've brought you. She gestured to the streams of light flowing through the core space. Now they carried not just dreams of peace, but active communications between species. The Coralli were sharing their philosophical wisdom with the hegemony. Human children were learning Zephyrian telepathy games. Artists from 100 worlds were creating beauty together across the vast distances of space. This is what communication becomes when it's based on understanding instead of dominance, Kim said. The Veil's presence shifted, examining each interaction with wonder. The Chorali and Hegemony have been enemies for centuries. Yet they speak of shared mathematical truths. How do you resolve conflict without conquest? Elder Velnash smiled, his thoughts radiating warmth. Through the discovery that being different is not the same as being wrong. Each perspective adds to the whole. Show me. The Veil whispered. What followed was the most unusual diplomatic conference in galactic history. Species that had been asleep for months awakened to find their former guardian asking for lessons in cooperation. The Chorali taught patience and long-term thinking. The Zephyrians shared techniques for emotional harmony. Humanity contributed its gift for adaptation and creative problem-solving. Commander Lee monitored the process from her position near the edge of the core space. Admiral, the barriers throughout the galaxy are transforming. Instead of walls, they're becoming communication networks. Networks? Kim asked. The Veil is using its power to enhance rather than block communication. Messages that once took years to cross the galaxy now travel in minutes. The transformation wasn't without challenges. Species that had been isolated suddenly found themselves in contact with neighbors they barely remembered. Old disputes flared up as civilizations tried to pick up where they had left off 3 months ago. But each time conflict arose, the Veil was there. Not to silence the voices, but to help them find harmony. It used its vast consciousness to facilitate understanding. To translate not just words, but intentions and emotions. I begin to see, the Veil said, as it mediated a territorial dispute between two minor species. Conflict is not eliminated by preventing communication, but by improving it. Ambassador Kang nodded. Every argument is an opportunity to understand each other better. Every disagreement is a chance to find a solution neither side had imagined alone. The core space filled with new activity as the Veil experimented with its transformed purpose. Instead of enforcing silence, it began to foster conversation. Species that had never met were introduced through carefully managed exchanges. Ancient enemies found common ground through shared artistic projects. But what if war comes again? The Veil asked, its old fears surfacing. What if the peace I help build becomes the foundation for new conflicts? Elder Velnash placed a gentle telepathic touch on the entity's consciousness. Then we will face it together. War is always a possibility, but it is not inevitable. The capacity for violence exists in most species, but so does the capacity for love. And if we make mistakes, Admiral Kim added, we'll learn from them. That's what living species do. We grow, we change, we become better than we were. The Veil pondered this for a long moment. Around them, the transformed barriers continued their work, carrying messages of reunion, discovery, and hope across thousands of star systems. Very well, the Veil finally said. I will guard the galaxy no longer through silence, but through understanding. I will watch for threats. Yes, but I will also watch for opportunities. I will protect, not by preventing communication, but by ensuring it remains honest and constructive. The core space began to pulse with new energy as the Veil established its new role. No longer the lonely guardian of enforced peace, but the active facilitator of genuine cooperation. There is one more thing, the Veil said, as the delegation prepared to leave. The creators who made me. They left behind other guardians. Distant galaxies have their own versions of the silence. Will you help me reach them? Will you teach them what you have taught me? Ambassador Kang smiled. Of course. But this time, we travel together. As they returned to their ships, the human delegation found a galaxy transformed. The Times, New Dawn Times, was surrounded by vessels from dozens of species, all eager to share in the new age of connection that humanity had helped create. The Proxima colonists were awake and celebrating. The Zephyrian homeworld pulsed with telepathic joy. Across the galaxy, worlds that had dreamed silent dreams for 3 months burst into conversation. Art, music, and laughter. Admiral Kim stood on her bridge, watching the streams of light that now connected every star system in the galaxy. The barriers were gone, replaced by something better, bridges of understanding that made the vast distances between worlds feel like mere steps between neighbors. Admiral, Communications Officer Han reported, we're receiving over 10,000 messages from across the galaxy. They all say the same thing. What's that? Thank you. Kim smiled as she looked out at the transformed stars. Humanity had broken through the silence, not with weapons or force, but with the simple recognition that communication was meant to connect, not conquer. The galaxy was no longer silent. It was singing, a vast chorus of different voices, finding harmony in their shared existence. And at the center of it all, an ancient guardian had learned to trust again, watching over a universe where differences were celebrated and conflicts were resolved through understanding rather than force. The stars themselves seemed brighter somehow, as if the joy of reconnection had lit up the very cosmos. Humanity had found its place in that cosmic symphony, not as conquerors or saviors, but as teachers of a simple truth, that talking to each other, with honesty and compassion, was the greatest power in the universe.